Hello, everybody. We are here with another episode of the Ethically Sourced podcast. Kashi and Rory are here with me again, and this time we're actually doing something a little interesting. We're doing a sort of like another follow up from last episode about the backyard breeder talk. Kashi, not having as much experience as Rory and I do on the breeder side of things for like certain other species of animals, like the ones we tend to specialize in, can come at this through a point of view from a more public, sort of point of view. And so we figured it would be good to have Kashi ask some questions that we could answer that might help also with the general public understanding better if we could answer
Yeah.
them. So, Kashi, go ahead.
Yeah.
What's your first question?
Okay, so and these are questions that aren't necessarily things that I don't know, and they're also like just opinion questions too. So
Okay.
uh the first one is can you turn a profit as a breeder?
Absolutely not.
And does a profit often lead to breeders cutting corners?
So, realistically, it depends on, how you want to put it, but ethically breeding, no, you definitely cannot turn a profit, and more often than not, you should expect to lose money with the
Yep.
care cost that you put into the animals in terms of like that ethical breeding stance. Um, when it comes to, if a breeder realizes they can make profit by cutting corners, there are some obviously who absolutely will. That's your backyard breeders,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
obviously you should
The
expect them
minute
to aim to make profit. Then you have, obviously like doodle breeders, for example. They will do anything in their power to make a profit on the
Not the
dogs.
doodles.
Yeah, American bully breeders are getting really bad these days. I've noticed.
Yeah, and it's so the way that I look at it is the minute a breeder realizes they can turn a profit, they have gone from an ethical breeder to a backyard breeder, especially if they
Mm,
are cutting corners.
yeah.
Um,
Right.
and it is no longer really ethical. Let's be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Because effectively, all that money you're going to make, even if you make a surplus off of the animals that you have born under your care and raise and everything, let's assume that by some miracle, you are able to care for them properly, get them the full vetting and everything that they need, or, what is standard for that animal, be it, dog, cat, rabbit, rat, otherwise. But the
Yeah.
moment you sell those animals, for a more appropriate price of the animal, which would primarily cover most of the care costs and whatever for dogs and cats, especially whatever testing would go into the parents.
Yep.
However, again, but let's say you covered all that, and then people still buy the puppies, and you just conveniently got enough that you made a surplus. All that surplus would go immediately back into the continued care of the animals.
Hmm.
Yep.
So you definitely would not see a profit coming out of
So
ethically
I know
breeding.
that you have uh, people that are like, oh, well, I'm selling my exotic bully breed pajama cross Affenpinscher German Shepherd, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I'm selling these puppies for like, oh, I don't know. I've seen them go for 7,000.
Oh yeah, right. Like I've seen what was it? There's a Facebook group I was once in or a page, and there's this dude who literally was like acting like he was like the biggest shit on the face of the earth because he sold a bunch of backyard bred American bullies for like 7K per puppy. I'm
Oh
like,
my
Yep,
buddy, that's
god.
nothing to be proud of.
Yeah. Quite the
that is
opposite.
that
Right.
is, and
That's
so yes,
extremely shameful.
those people are
Right.
definitely cutting a profit there,
Yeah, and that shows you
and
that they're not ethical breeders.
yeah, yep,
Yeah. Now, actually, though, so my big thing, though, of course, is Rory. You're obviously the most experienced in the horse world here. So, how does it go with
yes.
horses in that sense? Because I noticed that a lot of like horses have like things like really and crazy high stud fees, or like colts and other fillies or something like that will sell for really a lot depending on the lines or something. So, my curiosity
Okay,
is what's the
so
thing there, and like how's that work in the horse world? Does that defer when it comes to ethical breeding, or does it like say in a similar situation?
so that's a difficult one. If a stud is, let's say, we're going to take VS Code Red. He's one of the leading quarter horse pleasure studs right now. I believe his stud fee is $25,000. Okay, and that's live full on the ground guarantee. Okay, so what that means is you have the foal is born. If the foal stands and nurses within an X amount of time, that is a live foal on the ground. If the foal passes after that, and it probably won't be due to genetic issues, because once again, this is a very expensive stud. I think he sold at auction for $2 point something million.
Damn.
You're gonna cut a profit there. You are gonna cut a profit there. You know, if this stud is, say, live covering 100 mares a year, okay, that's $25,000 times 100. That's what, $2.5 million. But the thing is, that doesn't go into the cost of training that horse, the cost of that eventually goes into, like, that's not, show costs, trailering costs, training costs. I mean, this horse,
Yeah.
he might have, in a year, his training and everything might have been that $2.5 million. I'm not big into Western pleasure. I don't really follow it, but I do follow certain things. A good breeder will, especially with a stud horse, you will definitely cut a profit. All right. And growing up, my family had a phrase that I loved. It was, do you want to know how to make a small fortune on horses? You start out with a large fortune.
Well, yeah.
So you're definitely going to be making a profit off of a horse. And especially if you're doing reining, roping, horse racing, jumping, stuff like that. Those are money purses. Those events have a money purse at the end of the day.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a horse that he's proven, he's done his bit in the show ring, he's made money.
Okay.
Now you're going to turn around his kids; they should be making money.
Right.
I think VS Code Red just hit the $1 million club, which means that his offspring have a total combined earning of over $1 million.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now this isn't covering artificial insemination or anything like that. We're not looking at the mares here. I know that depending on the breeder, depending on the breeding setup, mares will be they'll be kind of like women going through IVF, where they will, they'll get a bunch of follicles going that are healthy and mature, and then they'll flush those follicles, and you can have 8 to 9 embryos afterwards that are viable, that you can impregnate at a later time. They will do the same thing with mares. Okay. And because a mare's gestation period is 11 months. All right, so you're not going to have the turnaround time of a kitten or of a cat, a dog, a rat, a mouse, something like that. So
Yeah.
you definitely are going to see well-bred colts going for a pretty penny, especially a lot of breeders will do like in vitro, like, hey, this is the mare, this is the stallion, we're offering the baby now before it even hits the ground.
Okay.
So you can do that. Yeah, and you can do egg implants, because I know that the quarter horse world is accepting of clones, artificial insemination, and like embryo implantation. So a mare can technically have more than one foal in a year via embryo implantation.
All right.
Now, looking at the jockey club, which is thoroughbreds, it has to be live cover.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be, they don't allow any embryo flushes. So that stallion has to live cover a mare in a breeding shed, which there is always a hazard for the stallion. There's always a hazard for the mare for that. Live cover is dangerous.
Right.
Can be dangerous, I should say.
Gotcha.
That mare is guaranteed only one foal a year. They try and put it so that your foal is born as close to the new year as possible. So you don't want the foal born at the end of December, because if you have a foal born, say, December 31st, the minute the new year rolls around, that foal is now a year old.
Oh. Huh.
Yep. So you try and have
Interesting.
them born
Yeah.
as early into January as possible, so that way
Gotcha.
when the new year rolls around, they have that, they can officially be a year old without. And
Right.
that's especially important because they start these horses at a year, 6 months. Most of these horses are running 2-year-old races, and you're seeing that. So,
Yeah.
horse world, you definitely cut a profit, and it's not unethical to cut a profit
Okay, so that's
for
good
Okay.
to know
breeding
for
in the
sure.
horse world.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I definitely had been wondering about them. Like I've seen a lot of really high price stuff going on in the horse world. I was always wondering is that technically ethical or would that count as unethical or stuff like that? But that's definitely good to know.
It definitely counts as ethical
Yeah.
because, a lot of that cost is going back into your program.
Right, especially if you're doing
Show
a bunch of high end
fees.
training. It sounds like and
Yep,
whatnot.
high
Yeah.
end training, training with some of those really expensive trainers.
Okay. Yeah.
Your training fee is going to be it's definitely going to be over $1,000 a month,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
and that's just training. That's not board and care.
Right.
You got your show fees, and once again, I'm not in the big. I was kind of just hacked around, enjoyed it, did
Yeah.
some dressage and some jumping, but my show fees per show. And so that show, Time in the Ring, was $100 a show fee,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
and that was just at training shows. There was no monetary jackpot there. You got a
Yeah.
ribbon, a pat on the back, and said, "Good job."
Right.
Off you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once again, your show fees, your training fees, your travel fees, your feed fees, everything like that. Most of the time, that money isn't going back into the person's pocket, but it's going back into their legitimate business.
Okay. Good to
Okay.
know. Yeah. So anyway, what else do we have, Kashi?
Well, first I want to know, how similar is that to, dog showing?
Oh yeah. Good point.
I don't believe there's a monetary jackpot for dog showing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it is just kind of like, hey, you're best in show, congratulations.
Yeah, because if
Congrats.
I recall right, I think I saw this thing where, was it someone? I think they won best of breed, and all they took home was like a $25 check or something like that. So
Oh.
there's no money in it. It's more just for confirming
the
that confirmation.
accolades.
Yeah, and getting that
Yep.
ribbon and basically like proving out your animals more than anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once again, that's something that I don't know much about. I did show and stuff like that, but I was in a very, it was in 4-H and stuff, and
Right.
there's a little bit of money kickback for 4-H for winning ribbons, which was
Yeah.
nice. And livestock, dogs, and stuff like that definitely made the majority of my 4-H, monetary monies.
Yeah, I definitely see that a lot.
Do
But as
puppies sell for much more if their parents are good in the ring or anything?
yeah, definitely. So a puppy that has titled parents and stuff, you're gonna definitely see hey, this dog, his mother was a grand champion, his father was a grand champion, his dam's dam was, you're gonna see definitely
Right.
this dog comes from a prestigious lineage. But
Yeah.
here's the thing: as a breeder, as a person, if you're looking at this and you're like, well, yeah, this dog comes from some pretty prestigious line,
Yep.
but they want $10,000 a puppy,
Yeah.
you've gone into making profit, and you're a backyard breeder
Right.
again at that point.
Right. 'Cause,
Yeah.
at that point, it's because a lot of the time, the good ethical breeders who even have lineages they're just filled to the brim with grand champions and best of breeds and all that, best in shows. They'll still only cost you 2,000, 3,000 per puppy average, just because that's so far been the main rate a lot of puppies go for most breeds anyway.
Yep.
I've noticed.
And the thing
Yeah.
is once again, a lot of these breeders, they're not doing it for the money. They're doing it especially for the rarer breeds, they're doing it for the preservation of the breed.
Right.
Yeah.
And because I know that some breeds are critically endangered, like the Iberian Hound is an endangered breed. Pharaoh
Right.
hounds, Lapland hounds, some other breeds are, they're a critically endangered breed,
Right.
and so, a lot of people, won't sell a dog, especially a quality dog, to a pet home because
Right.
the genes are needed in the breed pretty
Yeah.
severe.
Right.
That
For
makes
like,
sense.
yeah, because I think it was it's one of the Spitz breeds. I think it was the Finnish Lapland that
Hmm.
from what I recall, they are so rare. They actually have like a very large amount of inbreeding in the gene pool, and it's to the
Mm.
Hmm.
point where actually the coefficient of inheritance has been rising in the breed because of that, from what I recall.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know if it's
Oh.
specifically the Finnish Lapland. I just know it was one of the Spitz breeds. So
Yeah,
it's something
there's
I
a
have to
lot of
double check on, you know.
those really niche breeds that you're seeing a high coefficient in, and that's because they were critically endangered.
Yeah, and I
Dogs, unlike Go ahead.
oh no, go on.
Dogs, unlike horses,
Yeah,
usually have a closed stud book.
right. So it makes it harder because that's actually kind of part of what I was going into is I think that the tough part is in order to get rid of that coefficient, you should obviously be ready to outcross if needed, and time and time again, it's been shown that it's possible to outcross to help with that kind of issue. It's just I
Yep.
think that it's I get wanting to save the integrity and purity of the breed, but I think sometimes it's one of those things where you gotta basically cut your losses and just rebreed back into the standard after effectively fixing a problem that's already there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like with horses, what's really interesting is a stud can be graded for multiple stud books. So the horse may be a registered Holsteiner stallion, okay, but his offspring can, if he has done the testing and he has been an approved stallion, can be registered as Hanoverian and stuff like that. Like
Okay,
it is an open stud. It is,
gotcha.
and it depends on the breed,
Right,
but open studs are not as uncommon. But the horse has to qualify
right.
for that stud book.
Okay, makes sense. What else do you have, Kashi?
Okay, so the other one is like, what are some common aspirations between like the species that you've bred and like in general, what are you striving for?
Oh, so do you mean like just overall goals and how to
Yeah,
improve the animals?
like
Okay. So yeah, so I've definitely
I
noticed that
figured like good care
yeah,
is one of them,
right.
but like more like what kind of projects are you into?
Right, yeah. So definitely, as you mentioned, higher standard of care or a good standard of care is always key. Quality care equals quality animals is the big thing.
Mhm.
Like if I feed my rats, for example, a bunch of like leftover garbage, then I'm gonna honestly start having rats who are effectively the quality of leftover garbage because their diet
Yeah.
can affect so many things. But if I feed them a good diet, and give them good enrichment, a good environment to breed in, then they're going to have good, larger, healthier litters, and obviously the diet will go into the good production of making sure their litters can survive, have a good survival rate, and now to then further create good genetics in those rats.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where, yeah, it's good care is a key one. Then, as with any animal, the most general thing is across species, health and temperament are some of the most key things in this kind of stuff. Um,
Yep.
Although I find with some species, you can obviously, worry, or not worry, but, focus a little more on color, depending on what it is. Like I notice,
Yeah.
Yeah.
rabbits, for example, I've noticed aren't, like, you obviously need to worry about temperance with them still anyway. But I definitely have
Yeah.
noticed you have more wiggle room with color when it comes to rabbits as well. So it's pretty often you'll find people who will actually produce like high quality of a specific color. while
Yeah.
still also
Yeah.
being able to maintain that good temperament and health. Yeah, then I think I know reptiles are a big one when it comes to color as well.
Yeah.
I think fish are another one because
Yeah.
I don't know if they have much in terms of temperament breeding in fish, but Rory might have to answer that one for me instead.
With fish, you're looking for the overall form, uniformity of color, stuff like that. Um, Fish are, for the most part, most of your smaller fish aren't going to have much of a behavioral difference,
Right.
like your guppies, your schooling fish, stuff like that.
Right.
Once you start getting into like your beta fish have
Cichlids.
cichlids, and your cichlids
Right.
run a much bigger span than you think. You have your
Okay.
African cichlids, you have your South American cichlids.
Right.
Um, Sunfish are and bass are technically cichlids.
Oh yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard of that.
Um, and those can be very, very. They can have wild personalities, right?
Right.
Your Asian arowanas can have a lot of. Well, and you're not going to find an Asian arowana here in the U.S. unless it's brought here illegally,
Right.
because they are an illegal species here in the U.S.
Yep.
But they have personalities.
Okay.
Oscars have been called water puppies
Yeah, I've definitely
because
Oh
seen that
yeah.
because
they
Oscars
have
are fun.
cat. Yeah. So stuff like that, you're going to definitely have some personality, but I don't think that's as much of a inherited trait, and I could be wrong here.
Okay.
Versus nurture versus nature.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. All right.
I know
Yeah.
personally with my mice project, I am reading for personality, temperament,
Definitely.
color. I'm also trying to achieve radio mice, which is the show standard, which is where they have
Ah,
massive ears
right. Those
and
massive
kind of a
radar
lower
dish
set
ears.
ear.
Yeah.
Like
Yep,
Dumbo
and
rats.
Yeah.
kind of,
Well,
yeah.
sorta.
And they're
Yeah.
a lower set ear, and they look like somebody's like taken a hammer to the face and just like bonked their face flat.
Yeah, it's. I actually have someone I know who bred show standard mice for a while. I'll also slap a pic up on the thing in post when and stuff. But yeah. So
So,
yeah.
that's kind of what I'm aiming for. It is a
Okay.
little difficult because I don't have show standard animals.
Right.
So it's a
Yeah.
lot of selective breeding and
Right. And you're basically trying to create that show standard out of what you have to work with, pretty much.
Yeah.
right. And it's like I would love to get some show animals in here and
Yeah, that would be pretty cool,
make
actually.
that a thing.
Right.
But right now, I am just my big goals are personality and temperament. I don't want to have like super skittish mice that like you'll look at them and you're like, I will fight you, bro, and you're like,
Right.
no,
What you
or
want is
I'm gonna run
mice.
away.
Yeah, what you want is mice from similar to the big guys we've had in the past where they're just very relaxed in your hand and just hang out. If you feel
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. My favorite line is
Yep.
actually out of one of those mice.
Oh yeah.
His name was SP,
Yep.
and he was the chillest mouse.
Yeah, he
Like
definitely
he was
was.
super chill, and I have granddaughters and great granddaughters from him that I like put into different breeding programs because
Oh yep.
his personality was so great. Their personality is so great.
That's good.
But I am also really like I tend to say females because
Right.
males once they hit a certain age have to be in like solitary
Yeah.
because they fight.
Yeah. Otherwise they rumble.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so I tend to focus more on my female side of things.
Right.
But if I have a female who is flighty, who is skittish, I don't care how good of a mother she is. I don't care how pretty she is.
Right.
If she continues to be like a problematic animal for handling, if she squeaks at me, if she tries to turn around and bite me, it is a hard call from my program, which does mean that I do humanely euthanize because I
Right.
don't have the time for it. I don't want to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Next question, Kashi.
Yeah.
So what are some red flags or green flags also in like potential buyers?
Okay, so you mean like what are things that if I was a seller and a buyer came to me, I would want to, assess that buyer and what I would consider, to be good for if a buyer was either good or bad, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think a big one is openness to being ready to share their information that they know in terms of what they can do in terms of keeping that animal.
Mhm.
I want to.
Mhm.
I especially like to know their experience. Um, Obviously, the willingness to tell me whether they are able to, or whether they own their home or rent or something like that is helpful because obviously, if they rent, I
Yeah.
got to contact their landlord to be sure.
Yeah.
I find another big one is at least so with dogs, it's a little less entirely necessary. But when it comes to smaller animals that technically tend to be easier to dispose of, like I hate to use that word, but that's
Yeah.
sadly it in a way. With like a rabbit or something, especially rabbits are bad about this. Like you have people who get rabbits and they just suddenly decide, oh, I don't want to put in the 7 to 10 year commitment that it takes to own a rabbit, so they just dump them
Yeah.
out of the blue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because of that, I actually know a lot of breeders for rabbits who will actually run background checks
Yeah.
for their animals. There's a mouse breeder actually who does that on TikTok as well. They will run background checks on their buyers, and I honestly think that's perfectly acceptable. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, I do think that because of that, because these animals are so easy to basically just decide you want to get rid of, and then they do it, or it's
Yeah.
easy to hide abuse, versus a dog. You
Right.
definitely should be you should be ready to run a background check on someone because of that, and have their information. And a good buyer is going to be open to that because they will understand where you're coming from in terms of that
Yeah.
like fear of wanting to make sure the animals that you put all this work into producing and raising are going to indeed be going to a good home. But that's
Yeah.
just
Right.
that's just from the
And it's
smaller side of things. But I know some dog breeders may do the same as well.
definitely, I know that as a mouse person, or like um, you know, having horses, having large
Right,
animals that live for they can live 30 plus years,
right,
that I don't expect, when I sell a horse to somebody, I don't expect that horse to be there forever.
right. You just want to know it's
Yeah.
treated humanely while it's
Yeah.
there.
And I don't expect that horse to stay with them forever. Now, granted, you know, we were always like, once it comes onto the property, it's ours until it dies type thing. And I've had more than my fair share of horses pass away from old age and stuff like that. And um, I wish other people would do the same and, kind of make that commitment to a very intelligent animal. But I
Yeah.
understand that commitment, especially if they are an active show home doing stuff like that,
Right,
my horse might only be a step up for them.
right,
Yeah.
They might outgrow not the they might outgrow the physical capabilities of that horse.
right. True.
Yeah.
So at that point, it would make more
And
sense if they did reown the horse to a home that would be able to, not push it
right,
beyond what it
and
can do.
yeah,
Yeah.
and especially as a horse ages,
Right,
you start seeing some of the body breakdown. You start seeing
right,
just some joint breakdown. They might need more maintenance. They might need injections, to keep them comfortable and stuff like that.
okay,
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart that instead of putting them out to pasture or turning them into like a light work horse, or a children's horse, and some of them do go on to be children's horses. These horses end up, as they get older, they get passed around, their
Yeah.
accolades get forgotten, and they end up in slaughter. And
Mm.
I'm going to be
Yeah.
very honest right now. I am pro horse slaughter, and I know that is a very controversial subject,
okay,
Yeah.
but I am pro slaughter from the aspect that
yeah,
if a horse, and it doesn't happen often, but sometimes horses are,
hmm,
they go fucking crazy for
right,
no reason,
gotcha,
and they become so uh what's the word that they become such a hazard to physically be around.
Right.
That I do believe that slaughter is a decent option.
Yeah, it's giving them that
Yeah.
out that they, can't really get if they were to be basically forced to be
Now,
kept alive.
that being said, I would rather see a horse like that be
Right.
humanely euthanized in a home setting.
True.
Yeah.
Just because, I am a bleeding heart, and I do believe that, just like you're there when you put your dog down, you're there when you put your cat down, you should be there when you put your horse down.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And so, but if it's like, you get like herds of these unmanaged horses that they're wild, they haven't been touched, they're 8, 9, 10 in their teens,
Right.
and they're pretty
Yeah.
much unsalvageable at that point. I do think
Yeah.
that, at that point, slaughter would be the best option for them versus them going to sanctuaries and eating up resources that could be used for other horses.
True.
That
Yeah.
is
That's
on it.
fair.
I think that's understandable,
Yeah.
and I think it's the same for like feral cats and dogs too.
Right.
Yep.
Because like after a certain, especially with cats, after a certain age, they can't be salvaged at all.
Yeah.
You definitely see a
And-
slightly higher rate of it in dogs, but not as much as you realistically would want.
Yeah.
And at that
And
point,
so in horses, I definitely like, take a background check. If I feel that this horse just isn't a right fit, same with any animal that I will sell,
okay.
I won't sell.
Yeah.
I
think
won't.
that's
And
valid.
it's like if I'm like, I'm just getting like some really sketchy vibes from this chick or this sir or whoever,
Right.
I'm gonna be like, I already have another home lined up for this animal.
Right.
And I'll lie through my teeth and be like, they're the only animal I have available,
Yeah.
for rehoming right now.
Okay.
I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah,
And
honestly,
that's that.
I just say it outright. Like, I will literally be like, listen, I, get where you're coming from. I know, I understand you want the animal, but it does not feel like you're going to be a proper, a good fitting home for the animals I
Yeah.
have to the standard I hold my buyers to. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to let you down. However, I will recommend you to some other breeders I know of who might be able to help you out.
Yeah.
If even that, depending on how severe they are in terms of the red flags.
Yeah.
And it's red flags that I look for: lying about age, lying
yeah,
about
absolutely.
experience.
Yep.
I will be completely honest. I do Facebook stalk. I
Yeah.
social
Oh,
media
I did
stalk.
too.
You kind of have to these days.
Yeah.
And it's like if I'm just like seeing kind of like red flags or like I'm seeing behavior that I don't like,
Right.
which can
Yeah.
be problematic. I get that, but like if I'm seeing like racism, homophobic stuff like that,
Yeah.
as I'm white. I'll be completely honest, but it's not something I tolerate. And as somebody who is part of the Alphabet Army, I'm not gonna sell an animal to like somebody who's like lesbians are the worst,
Yeah.
or
Same.
like gays are going. I'm not gonna sell to you because fuck you. You think you're going to hell? You can sit on my dick and ride
Yeah.
it.
Right. And like meanwhile, I'm cishet man, but also it doesn't change. I'm also Asian and autistic, so I'm like half and half in terms of the the normal side of things, quote unquote normal, and the
Yeah.
more like lower side of things. And then like, but still, despite that, it don't matter. Like if you show any form of like hatred towards people who are doing literally nothing to you except living their own lives, then I'm gonna be like, listen, brother, I can't stand for that, so I'm not gonna send my animal with you. I don't want
Yeah,
you.
absolutely
I don't
not.
want you to be one of the people that represent me in what I do.
Exactly.
I don't care how good you
because-
do with animal. I mean, hell, if I bred dogs, for example, and like I sent out a puppy to someone, and they like imagine they were like an excellent sport home, and they've like titled their dogs everything, but like let's assume I haven't sent about a puppy to them yet, but I was like considering it. But then I found out they were like racist as hell. Then I'd be like, no, I don't care
Yeah,
how well you can
absolutely
handle
not.
that dog. I don't care how much experience you got. I don't care about any of that. The fact you're being racist is a huge no go for me, and I will not send my animals to you.
Yeah, that's a huge
And
deal breaker.
that's just my own personal moral
Breeders?
stance on it.
As a breeder, the animals that we send out, the people we send our animals to, they represent us out in the general community.
Exactly, because like because suddenly someone could be that racist asshole And it turns out they also, are, again, they could be an amazing sporting home, but it doesn't change the fact they're a racist asshole. And
Yeah.
they are
And then it's
now
like, oh,
representing me and my
this
animals.
breeder sold to them, so
Exactly.
this breeder must also be a
Yeah.
racist asshole. And it's
Exactly.
like, mm,
That's
not.
not quite how that works, but
Yeah, it's
I
not, but
still,
that's
if
definitely
I
a general public
know,
kind of thing,
You would
sadly.
be surprised in the canine and like the dog community.
Yeah.
yeah,
There are people who will literally like, if they're like, well, they bought a dog from this person who happens to be a racist asshole, and they were breeding said
yeah,
dog. I wouldn't buy puppies from this person because I bet they're also a racist asshole.
Yeah, and it's like,
You would be
yeah,
surprised.
yeah, logically
It
the
is,
connection ain't there, but people will still associate that in terms of just like the general
yes,
public. So it's one of those things
yeah,
where you
yes.
definitely got to screen so heavily, in my opinion, to avoid that kind of
Oh,
drama.
it is, and
Yeah.
like it's the reason that like for a while I kind of like,
Yeah.
and this was years ago before I met my husband.
Okay.
I kind of toyed with the idea of breeding cats, and like, it would be cool to get like some Abyssinians or like Bengals or something like that. It could be
yeah,
fun. And then like I realized like just how much of your public persona
Right.
would be portrayed by the people you sell to.
Exactly.
yeah,
And especially when it's like, if it's like a animal that like, is cats, you can realistically afford to have multiple litters a year, depending on your cattery
Yeah.
size and stuff like that. And
yeah,
it's one of those things where if you, even one of those kittens getting out, into the wrong hands and to the wrong person who's just that kind of person, a bigoted
Yep.
person, it could crush everything you'd done and worked up to.
yeah,
Yep.
And it makes it hard too
And
because then you have more animals that you have to rehome though, already. So it's like then you can't. Sometimes you can't always be as selective depending on the amount of people on your wait list or otherwise.
so like sometimes you're like, I know this person like that they'd be a great home, but I don't agree with her ethics, but I gotta move kittens. And
Right.
it's and
yeah,
so it just becomes like, I know there was a Bengal breeder that just recently quit breeding because
Oh yeah.
there's no demand for the kittens.
Oh yeah. Wow.
It was the breeder you were looking at.
Oh really? They quit?
Oh, it was Elysian.
No, 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 not Elysium. But I
Okay.
have heard of them though, actually.
Yeah, Elysian Bengals has quit breeding because there's no demand for kittens.
Oh wow, that's unfortunate.
yeah.
And it's really unfortunate because they had beautiful cats.
Right.
They had beautiful cats, and it's like, oh well, another one bites the dust.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
another thing I think. Outside of like that kind of stuff too, it's just like COVID hit us so bad, and it's like ruin. Our economy's like going in shambles. So it's like now it's so hard to rehome any animals. For
Yeah.
It really is,
you
and
know
it's like, if I got into a position where I had to rehome my dog,
right.
I would not rehome him. I would honestly, I would do a youth on it
Yeah, because
because
like he's also the kind of dog where since I've definitely been around with him enough and seen how it works, he's definitely one of those dogs that like your average person just really couldn't handle. And
right,
a
and
lot of people,
and it's not that
yeah,
he's a bad dog.
right.
He's a wonderful dog.
Right.
He's got a lot of energy. He does have some issues with redirect aggression
Yeah.
and with you know fence aggression and leash aggression and just in general asshole dog aggression.
Right. And
That
you're so used to this, but not other people's are not. And you
yeah,
could take all that time
and
to train them and how to work with him, but like who's to say they wouldn't just turn around and do something if it suddenly
right,
he did redirect the aggression or something like that onto
and
the
he
wrong
bit
thing.
somebody and like, and if he bit somebody and they chose to use him for a behavioral thing, I would feel awful because I would feel like I let him down.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would, as his current person, prefer to youth him, like take him in, and like let him have like the best last day of his life.
Right. Like
Let him eat like fucking chocket and shit like that.
Give him a
Yeah.
Reese's cup.
Ooh, that sounds good right now.
Reese's, you comedian. But and I that's what I would do for him because that is the last great dignity I could give him.
Right.
Yeah.
So next question.
Yeah, we have we have a few more minutes, but yeah, we'll definitely.
Yeah,
next
question.
Yep. All right. Let's see what we got.
What are your like worst client stories? Like, doesn't have to be one that you experienced personally. but like one that you've heard about. Like,
Yeah. So I've both had worse client stories. Actually, you might have been in the. Yeah, you might have seen it in the server, Kashi. That one dude wanted the albino ball python.
Oh, and he was like, "Why would I drive?" And like, I could buy it for this much. And then he was
Yeah,
like, "I
yeah,
have like
yep.
6 snakes." And then it was like 60 snakes.
Yeah,
And
and then he switched it up to like something, however many snakes or yeah, like
oh my
65.
god.
Yeah, and it's like so there's this dude basically who contacted me about a python that I was selling, a proven breeder, not proven breeder, sorry, just a ready to breed albino ball python who was heterozygous for piebald. And then so basically he asked how much. I'm like 200. He's like, oh well, I could get something cheaper than that. Like I could go get a little like regular. It's just an albino dude. I'm like, okay, but this is also a ready to breed, adult female.
Yeah.
And hell, I looked it up later. Technically, the lowest value of all sold and currently available animals on a very commonly seen hub was 300. So I was technically underpricing my animal, and he was talking. He was
Yeah.
apparently getting all up in arms about how I was overpricing her and stuff. Despite the value she technically held. But
yeah,
he went on this whole tirade about like, oh, I could teach you, blah blah blah. I all know all this stuff. I have 6 ball pythons. Then he like suddenly switched to like I have 600 snakes or whatever. And the
right.
dude just
Like, he
like
was a
kept going
breeder
on and on.
facility.
Jesus.
The dude kept going on, and I was like, and honestly, I didn't really care. I was just really entertained and having fun by it. you
Yeah.
know? And he just droned on and on about like, oh, I'll teach you all about snakes and stuff, and like, lo and behold, joke's on him. I sold the animal, and here's the thing: I'm petty enough of a person where I literally texted him back, like with a picture of all the money I had, and I'm like, hey, guess who sold the snake after all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he was telling Jesse or Tick that he wasn't gonna sell it and all of this stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like
What a shitty
there is
attitude.
there is a very popular Facebook page
Mhm.
that she a breeder got a call because one of her dogs ended up in a got taken by animals,
Oh yeah. Okay.
and she saw pictures of the dog. So the dog was emaciated, urine scalded, a whole bunch of other shit.
Yeah. Oof.
Like, the dog was in really, really bad shape. And they ended up using the dog because of how shitty of shape she was in. Like,
Aw.
it was that bad.
That
And
sucks.
she took the Facebook page down for a while, and
Okay.
it's back up and running now. And
Gotcha.
people are like, oh, well, I bought merch from this page, and it's taking forever to get here. And people are like, whoa, you bought merch from this page?
Oh yeah.
Like, are you unaware of like what she did to like a dog that was like confirmation, like a really good dog? Like, are you unaware?
Okay.
And people are like, oh my god, like, I'm asking my bank to like refund me and stuff. Like, I had no idea that she
Yeah.
like starved this dog.
Gotcha.
And the callous excuse was, oh, the dog is messy in the crate.
Oh my gosh.
It takes more than like a daily accident in a crate that you should be cleaning up to
Yeah,
cause
right.
urine scald, first off.
Right.
The dog wasn't eating. Well, why didn't you take the dog to the vet?
Right.
Like, all this shit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the breeder lied to me about the dog, lied to me about everything about the dog.
Mhm.
And the breeder was like, I was really open to her about like this dog's issues, that she was messy in the crate, that that
Yeah.
she would
Right.
defecate and stuff in the crate. Like, I was open about that.
Okay.
And it was a horrible experience to watch, like, from the outside. I can't imagine how awful it would have been to like
Right.
have had an emotional connection to this animal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's always tough, is like the horror stories that you can get from buyers. That being said,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we have reached time once more, so time flies as
Yeah.
usual. However, thank you everybody for joining us on this lovely episode. If you ever have any
Yeah.
questions, feel free to ask in the comments, and we are happy to answer. Until then, have a
Yeah.
good one.
Have a great one. Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.